Welcome back to It's All Making Sense. After Chris Kavanagh decided that Saturday lunchtime was going to be all about him being a little snot-nosed rule stickler, instead of just supporting the entertainment products we all pay through the nose to watch and spend hours obsessing over, a thought struck me. At least he's consistent. No, wait, that wasn't it. What I thought was not particularly original, but it was simply, football is hard. You can do literally everything right, day in, day out, spend millions on the best players in the world, and still drop points due to stupid officiating or other things outside of your control, like, spending £30 million on a new midfielder and your big centre-back snaps him in half in the first training session. Just an example I plucked out of nowhere. The standard Man City have set has made it feel unacceptable to draw a Premier League match. The Invincibles drew 12. In this day and age, maximising what you can control becomes more and more important, and we have to search deeper and harder for any competitive advantages. Squad dinners, travel plans, pickpockets, dogs, growing grass a year in advance. Mikel will do anything to win. So, when it came to our business this summer, I was really keen for us to maximise absolutely everything we could do to chase down City, to control the controllables. Firstly, no complaints on the outgoings, really good work on the sales. The number of sell-on clauses we've inserted into those deals is a real bonus for me, something not being spoken about enough when we consider total sale packages. And on the incomings, the club have gone for Neto, Marino, Calafiori and Raheem Sterling. It's a decent window, 6 or 7 out of 10, and we've absolutely improved all over the pitch. But personally, while it does provide answers, it also leaves me with some key questions. First though, let's not pretend that Raheem Sterling is some total bum. We're not 7. Unless you are, in which case, go to bed. He's a multi-Premier League winning player at a peak age who offers versatility all across the front three and will be a brilliant addition to the squad. Is he the world's best player who would have died for at the top of the summer? No, but as I've said a million times, just because you can't sign the future of the position doesn't mean you can't improve, and he is absolutely an upgrade on Eddie and Reece. If we can get him in an environment where he feels secure, wanted and sure of his role, he could absolutely cook for us. Am I too old to say cook? I think I am. We all know the player, but it's worth saying the way Sterling slaloms on the dribble and attacks the box as a winger is very different from what we already have. He's quick and he attracts markers. Big tick. Trossard, Jesus and Saka especially are a lot more ball to feet, but Sterling has some variety and he's happy to run and stretch a line, which we don't have a lot of. However, I do believe you get the best out of him more centrally with more touches. He's not going to score 25 goals, but he'll almost certainly have some of the best shot variety and placement in the squad, and he attacks the back post in a different way to a Saka or Martinelli, ghosting off the back of defenders, which could lead to a bit of a replication of those Saka and Martinelli dynamics across the box that we saw in 22-23, dependent on the side he plays. His decision-making is a concern, but it always has been, and there's more on Sterling on the Cannon podcast with clips if you're interested. In terms of where he'll fit in, let's see. I think he'll start off the left, but I'm also really pleased to see some proper support for Saka to come in order to manage his minutes. I also love that we finally have a winger on that right-hand side whose strength is to take you to the byline and deliver a ball. And the deal itself? Wow. It depends who you believe, but Chelsea are almost certainly paying Sterling more than we are to play for us. They really are tin pot, aren't they? We're not tying ourselves into anything with Sterling long term, and considering the rumours are he turned down absolutely insane money from Saudi, that tells me you've got a hungry individual with a point to prove. So Sterling is absolutely a decent signing, all things considered, but I've still got questions. And the first one is this. Have we missed something? City not replacing Alvarez and making only one relatively cheap signing from within their football group, having spent literally billions over the last 10 years. Arsenal with a £22 million net spend this year, also big spending last few years. Is that lack of opportunity, lack of ambition, the owners being more sustainable, or is there something else going on? This isn't conspiracy, this is just fact. If what City are accused of doing is even half proved, there are going to be a lot of players moving around in the next 18 months. And that has a lot of knock-on effects. The City players themselves, yes, but if a Phil Foden goes to Madrid, what happens to a Eduardo Camavinga or an Arda Güler? What talent doesn't go to City? What academy talent might there be to pick up? Slightly fantasy football stuff, sure, but is there a world that explains the relatively low spend this window, even from Liverpool, in part because we feel it might prohibit us being involved in those conversations when they arrive from a financial perspective? I don't think anyone can say with any certainty what's going to happen, but you never know what Edu, Richard Garlick and Arsenal's lawyers think might happen. Richard Garlick worked at the Premier League for many years. If City were going for another Champions League and Premier League, why have they just had their highest positive net spend by miles in over 10 years? The lowest spenders in the league when they've got a number of key players aging out and Pep supposedly on the way out. Time will tell, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some athletic long read about this in the future. It might have been a consideration this summer, and that might help to recontextualise some of what's happened this window. Second, all that aside, unfortunately, I do still have a question about whether we maximise this summer's opportunity to strengthen the forward areas. I don't like being a critic, especially when fans, me, are working with so little information, but I have to be honest. Everyone's opinion on this will boil down to one thing: whether you felt the right player was available this summer. That is really it. If you were convinced that Osimhen or Gyökeres or Mudryk or Troy Deeney was the man, then you're not hearing anyone come at you with, yeah, but maybe we're waiting for him next summer, or yeah, but he said on Instagram he loves the club. You want the player now because you're sold on them, so you will feel disappointed by this window in some way in that regard. But if you weren't really convinced on anyone, even if you weren't even conscious of that till now, then you're probably more in the camp of, let's wait till 2025, the market's a bit dry, I trust the club, and so on. Maybe a third option, you think Arsenal were 100% on someone and just couldn't get it done, but I think that's nearly always now a case of how much Arsenal really wanted the player. I do struggle to buy the argument we couldn't get players not playing in the Champions League to move to us these days, so unless we're talking about Mbappe or Bellingham, I struggle to buy that argument. If we really wanted someone, I think we could have got them, or certainly pushed harder than we reportedly did. It's always a question of how far you're willing to go. If we were on our knees for Osimhen, we'd have found a way to manage the wages considering our room for growth there. Nico Williams had a release clause, and money and the Champions League talks no matter how much he says he likes Bilbao. We didn't even bid for Šeško, apparently. There's almost certainly things we don't know, but I think the reality is we weren't 100% we are only in for you with any player, as we were with Rice this summer. Even if I was, and maybe you were. I happen to think the right player was available on the market, but football is subjective and I trust Arsenal's talent idea over mine. But I want you to ask yourself something really simple. How did you feel at 55 minutes in the Villa game when they were coming on to us and Trossard hadn't come on yet? Did you feel we need a world-class forward? Yeah, me too. I trust the club, but I don't agree there wasn't something out there. We can all be smart and justify why we didn't sign anyone after the fact, but the fact is we all wanted someone at the beginning of the summer. We can say we think we have enough on paper to make it through to the end of the season. Look what happened at Villa, our squad contributes. But football isn't played on paper. Things go wrong, as we saw at Brighton, and you need a surplus, not enough. I still think we lack that force of nature type player in the forward line, and I think they were available. I think that will hurt us over the course of the season. Maybe it's a bit harsh because we were down to 10 men, but I think that hurt us against Brighton. This is all City's fault, frankly, but although I think our chances against City have increased with our work this window, I think they could have increased further. Why take the risk when we know what we're up against? Look at Leao's goal for Milan the other night. That's what we're after. But maybe I'm wrong. It's happened before, it will happen again. There was no talent available this summer, they were all bums, no deal worth doing, we couldn't have paid the money for Isak, we wait till next year. Sure, let's accept that position, but frankly that leads me to another arguably bigger question. Because if there was no one on the market this summer, what makes us so sure that there will be next year? Let's go further. Maybe you don't even think we need a forward. Arsenal do. This wasn't the first window where we were, seemingly, searching for that big forward signing. We've wanted that type of player since Aubameyang left. No? Jesus, Trossard and Sterling are the only forward signings we made under Arteta, other than you know who. Havertz, of course, has found himself there, which goes some way to contextualising some of this. But for me, none of them represent forward signings who, at the time of signing, you go, that's Arteta's guy for the long term. Arguably Jesus at the time, but it's not like we stopped looking after 2022. We haven't stopped looking. We tried to sign Šeško. We haven't stopped looking after we found Havertz. City haven't been after a Haaland replacement since 2022, have they? According to some of the most reliable outlets we have, since about summer 2021, we've been in for that game-changing, ceiling-raising type talent, no matter the circumstance. The names have changed relative to where the team is, but we met with Ivan Toney, didn't like him. Šeško, big interest. Vlahovic, big interest. Mudryk, bids. Rafinha, bids. I saw a lot of stuff about Calvert-Lewin years ago. Isak was outside the Emirates, wasn't he? Rumours are we still want him. We're going off reports, but there's something here, no? This summer, Šeško, the comments about box efficiency, the rumours of what the hierarchy felt post-buy-in, even signing Sterling. It sounds like we know there's a level to go. So why can't we find it, and why don't we do it? Some people are okay to wait for the right player to come along. Fine, but that doesn't change that it looks like we've wanted that type of signing for 5, 6, 7 windows at this point. You can accuse me of shiny new toy syndrome all you like. The club are showing their hand every window. So what is it? Why doesn't Arteta get his man? Is Saka just developing too quick? Have we improved too fast? Are we being too patient? Is he being backed? Did we need to just roll the dice at some point? Do we even want to beat City before Pep leaves? Is there something we don't know? We've had a controllable here since 2021. Surely we could have made one of those signings. Why, when there is clearly a desire, don't we act in that most key of positions? Is Arteta too picky? Is it simply a case of money? Do we have to go through each window case by case? When we reflect on this window, is that how we will remember it? I'm sorry not to have many answers, but hopefully you can see I just have a lot of questions. Something about this isn't adding up. Maybe Chris Kavanagh's in charge. Football is tough, mate. It's not played on paper. Watching Man City, it's very apparent that they just have very, very good players. Sorry to state the obvious. And that counts for a lot. So when I reflect on this window and our perceived lack of ambition, even if there's loads of context around it that I don't dispute, it just leaves me with questions. Not getting that type of forward over the line in this window may or may not kill us. Time will tell. I just wish this window had answered a few more questions. I said that without a forward signing, I don't see us as the favourites for the league. Now we've signed Sterling, I think we are genuinely neck and neck. I don't think it's enough for me to be sure we'll beat the robots, but it is something. However, if justice is served at the beginning of next year, we might become the clear favourites, and all my questions can be answered. Right, let's get back to the actual football, shall we? If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly, or you can buy us a coffee.